Hello, good evening. Bringing you a review of the European market, so should I say the FTSE 100 to a large extent, and going into the trading session, the 6th of January 2021. Yes, indeed, we're in 2021 now. Okay, let's get right into the action. Let's try and keep the videos short and sweet going forward now, hopefully in 2021, and get to the key resistance support zones that will help you trade the markets. Okay, in terms of the FTSE 100 then, so initially, obviously a bearish reaction to a large extent was expected. The markets obviously certainly did obviously implode higher, which is quite impressive towards the end, and obviously after hours as well to a large extent, currently trading around the 6636. So okay, so my trade was short on the FTSE 100 on the back of the lockdown phase, etc. Obviously we pushed higher, we retraced up to 75% on the back of the OPEC news potentially, and also obviously vaccine euphoria, etc., and also in regards to the Georgia elections. Initial rally, obviously a potential short squeeze on the back of that. Then the markets obviously sold off on the back of fears regarding lockdown, and obviously keeping the lid at the fib 75%, where previous resistance equals support on the FTSE 100. We then made a potential double bottom before we started to rally on the back of obviously Mr. Rishi Sunak's 4.5 billion stimulus. Okay, that certainly helped, and obviously talk of BOE potentially interjecting there as well with lower rates. That certainly helped the FTSE. And then finally the creaming or icing on the cake really was the news regarding Saudis cutting the oil, obviously oil output for 1 million barrels per dollar. So, okay, so again, certainly cutting 1 billion, so that obviously that helped the price of oil. If you look at the chart of Brent, for example, let's have a look at Brent. Look at that impressive thrust higher, bullish candlestick, obviously closing the gap on that daily chart. So again, interesting scenario here. If you look at the weekly chart, quite impressive. In terms of the thrust here, if we take the pivot high to the pivot low, we're currently approaching the fib 61%. Key resistance will be felt around this zone here. Okay, if we do continue to go higher at the $60 level now, it's quite impressive given the fact that obviously we've got this pandemic, obviously concerns regarding the global growth story, etc., etc. Okay, not going to go down that route again. I think we're already pretty familiar with that now. So yes, in a very, very impressive day for the price of oil, as you can see here, quite an impressive thrust in the back of the Saudi news, helping the FTSE to a large extent. But nevertheless, bearing in mind, obviously lockdown concerns going forward in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, obviously post-Brexit deal, etc. It's not exactly obviously a good scenario to be in as a British citizen. Okay, so 10-minute chart, as you can see here, clear resistance is currently around 6620. I've actually gone short the FTSE as well, so I'll certainly declare my obviously perspective here, looking to potentially flush lower, potentially close the gap, and potentially retest at 6560. It's on the back of obviously bearish news regarding the obviously lockdown. Okay, so 60-minute chart, you've got this potential wedge pattern forming. So again, let's keep an eye on this. Okay, we're still within this bearish candle here, so 6640 zone. So looking for a potential bear flag scenario coming to test the 6500 zone on the low on the downside. So again, keep that in consideration. The daily chart, like I said before, certainly is facing a stiff resistance here around the 6600 zone. In terms of the market, it's really breaking out. I mean, is the Saudi oil news really the fundamental catalyst for a breakout higher? Will it negate the concerns regarding this obviously UK national lockdown? I don't think so. That's my understanding. But again, I could be proven wrong. Bearing in mind, obviously, you've got the Georgia runoff overnight, so that'll be interesting to see whether the Dems or the Republicans obviously have control there with regards to the Senate. They're very unlikely the Dems will. But if it is, then obviously it will be potentially negative for tech. So keep an eye on that in terms of increased regulation. So again, we're not going to go down that route. Let's keep on the FTSE. Let's keep our focus on this indices alone. In terms of the sister indices for the FTSE 100, which I always cross-reference, you've got the key resistance here around the 21,000 level on the FTSE 250. So again, watch out there. In terms of the FTSE 350, so I always cross-reference that in terms of the index itself. So again, impressive. Certainly impressive. It looks like it wants to potentially thrust higher, but can we with this nationwide lockdown? Very, very unlikely from my understanding. But again, the markets are always right, and individual traders can always be wrong. Okay. In terms of the other areas to watch out for as well is the Aussie. This is an index. This is a currency certainly has been very, very impressive. Obviously, given the fact that Australia and obviously New Zealand have controlled their COVID cases. Obviously, they have been thrusting higher, obviously given the fact that Chinese have controlled it, and the market certainly on the back of the obviously euphoria with regards to the vaccines, and the US dollar certainly weaker on the back of COVID as well, given the obviously surge in COVID in that country doesn't certainly bode well. Let's just quickly cross-reference the German DAX. So German DAX obviously closed the gap on the daily chart. So bulls certainly still are in control to a large extent. So gap fill support on the German DAX. So again, an impressive thrust, but nevertheless, bearing in mind they've increased their COVID restrictions as well. So bear that in mind. French CAC will get support, or will get a lift due to the oil price. So again, it's quite heavily commodity related. So just bear that in mind, given the fact that the Saudis cut the supply of oil, and I think the Russians called it a New Year's obviously present. So again, keep that in mind. And daily chart on Euro stocks as well, certainly with that topping tail, quite an impressive topping tail to say the least. And certainly does indicate a potential reversal on the back of obviously the mutations and obviously COVID cases as well. Okay, so I think that's a wrap up there in terms of European markets. Wish you the best for trading tomorrow. Be sure to follow me on Twitter. Goodbye now.